A couple of things here. I didn't pre-promote this. I didn't, not there's anything wrong with that, but I didn't want this to be I don't know. I wanted to share it. And by the way, and he's fine with that. I made sure I'm not being a ding dong here. And also to be clear, as many of you know, I'm not the only media member he's reached out to. Okay. So I ain't special, but
so he obviously felt compelled to do that.
He felt compelled to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know all the people he reached out to. I know a couple, and I'm sure there will be, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, De'Aaron Fox is doing his own spin. You're right. De'Aaron Fox is doing his own spin. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to share. So I'll guide you through the conversation yesterday. The first message I got was, I never spoke to him. And Kyle, do you have that says, I never spoke to him before the trade? What that means is that's in reference to the interview that a lot of people have misconstrued, which is his text with Stephon Castle. For you YouTubers, that's up on the board right now. He sent a screenshot of his text message to Stephon Castle, or excuse me, I should say Stephon Castle's text message to him. I'll read it for those of you listening. Yo, brother, this is Steph. Lock me in, gang. Let's get to it. Fox responds, ready to hit the ground running. You're a big part of the reason I wanted to be there. Stephon Castle responds, means a lot, bro. Love your game. Welcome. That was sent Sunday at 9:50. Now, here's what I'm not clear on is what time zone De'Aaron was in, but this was after the trade happened.
He should have been in Central Time.
Okay, so that would be
because they played OKC.
7:50 our time.
And we're going to Minnesota.
Right.
Yeah.
So 7:50 our time. So that was one thing he wanted to clear up from that interview where he said he texted with Stephon and but not, I think a lot of us, and I understand this, a lot of us took that as he was, texting.
Yeah, remember yesterday, like, could that be tampering?
Yeah, could that be tampering?
Player, which is,
No, that wasn't the case. So we went on to have kind of a conversation. I wanted to clear up some things. And when it came to Mike Brown, that's obviously, we had targeted that as a huge sticking point. Again, I'm quoting De'Aaron Fox. I told them, meaning the Kings, this summer during Mike's contract negotiations. Now, you'll remember Mike was going into his final year. There was a story about, the Kings balking on extending him. So this was at that point in the summer. De'Aaron Fox said, I told the Kings this summer during Mike's contract negotiations that I wasn't going to play for another coach. And if I was, it was going to be for another franchise. Once they fired Mike, the writing was on the wall. So let's disseminate that for a little bit. I don't know that necessarily, I'm not on a side here and calling balls and strikes. I don't know that necessarily paints De'Aaron in the best light either. You could make an argument. What is the star player doing involved in coach negotiations to the point where that would contribute to an opt-out or asking out? Also, you can make an argument, guys, they fired him because you guys weren't performing.
Absolutely.
You want to keep Mike Brown, win games. But I think this is more towards him wanting to get that part of it straight. This is important.
Yeah.
Because not only did he not get Mike Brown fired or allude to Mike Brown getting fired.
He's very close to him.
Is very close to him, did not want that to the point where he basically de facto threatened the organization, do not fire him. So then when it comes out and there's all these stories about him being involved, he's necessarily going to feel the wrong way. I'm going to hold back one thing, guys, and I want to be perfectly transparent on this, and I hope you understand why. This is my choice. This is my decision to do this. He also added to me that he was aware that the organization wanted Mike Brown to fire either one coach or another coach. Okay. Out of respect for those coaches who are still with the organization, I'm not trying to make their lives any sort of difficult. Okay. But that is part of the story and it will eventually come out in the wash. I'm just not interested in doing that. You can probably, I will tell you this much. It ain't Doug Christie. And you can probably do the math there on who those two were. Very easy math. I think this is maybe the most important thing he said in our conversation. And it really kind of goes to what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. This is De'Aaron Fox's, my conversation yesterday. Once they let me take the fall from Mike Brown's firing, I was done. Once they let me take the fall from Mike Brown's firing, I was done. The writing was on the wall with the firing and the fact that there was no press conference. The players were forced to do the PR. And on top of that, the media is now running with some of the media. And by the way, nationally, I don't know if anybody locally did that, is running with the fact that he had something to do with Mike Brown being fired. That was the last straw for him. Remember, there were two things mainly that led to De'Aaron Fox being gone. One was, does he trust that this team is going to build a winner behind him and compete? The other is the stability of the organization in general. I asked him, I said, so am I gathering this correctly? You wanted to spend your career here, but you didn't want to commit your entire prime to a franchise that wasn't doing the things necessary, in your opinion, to compete for a title, plus all the drama behind the scenes. Is that accurate? And he said, yes. You can want to do something, but that doesn't mean you end up doing it. And the extrapolation there, he wanted to stay here, but there were very clear things he wanted that either the Kings were unwilling to do, or didn't do them properly in his eyes, or he judged that they weren't going to do, and he made the decision. I said, why did you choose to reach out? And he said, it's unfortunate to me that almost everything being said is false. I tried to do my job and said, okay, I'm happy to share all this tomorrow, and I'll share it verbatim. Why don't you come on the show? Why don't you come on the show? Make that your last word. Say what you want to say. No filter, no operator, telephone, your voice. And he said, I that's fine. I just don't want to do it right now. I need my team to know I'm focused on them, but there will be a time, I imagine, over the summer. Some would say, well, if you're doing that, then why are you? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. The other thing I asked for, I said, there's one other thing that's kind of out there. Just want some clarity on from your side. There seems to be confusion. Your wife, Rasay, said on Twitter, you never asked for a trade. How does that square with your agent telling the team you wanted out? The Spurs were your preferred spot. I must be missing something there. He said, I never asked for a trade. I made them aware of, and I'm paraphrasing now that. He said, this is quoting now, after Brooklyn, they told Rich, that's Rich Paul, his agent, they were getting calls. They were getting calls on me. So then we said, meaning he and his agent, if I'm going to be traded, I want to go to San Antonio. And that was before it was put out in the media that they were listening to offers. Then the very next game on this road trip, you'll remember, was in Philadelphia. He said in Philly is when Wes Wilcox, the assistant GM, came to me to tell me the day, and then that day it was put out in the media. To be honest, I really thought this was all going to happen during the summer. Did not think that this was going to happen during the deadline. In other words, the implication there that they kind of moved the timeline a little bit ahead. I said, okay, just a little. Let me be clear here. Wes came to you to Philly to tell you that they were getting offers, or Brooklyn. He said, no, in Philly. They told Rich Paul, his agent, sorry, I'm just reading what's said here. They told Rich Paul after the Brooklyn game, Rich had actually informed them that night. In other words, Fox and his wife and his camp. But then the direct contact with De'Aaron to inform him was the following game in Philly by Wes Wilcox. I'll paraphrase the rest of this. I promise you, I'm not inserting or deleting, but basically, his thing and his wants. And again, this is for all you to judge. I'm not being his attorney here. He wants to reach out and correct a few things because he loves the fan base. And we talked at length about that. He loves the fan base. This is home, or was home. He wanted to spend the rest of his career here. Now the Kings are going to, and by the way, I reached out to the Kings, at least to a couple, no comment, but we do expect to have Monty on probably Monday, and that's completely up to them. If they want to comment, great. If they don't want to do a tit for tat, I totally get that too. But the Kings have said, hey, here's what we're saying. We've repeatedly offered him a max deal. We offered him a max deal multiple times, and that's a fact.
That's true. Yeah.
But with all the confusion and all the emotions out there, I can only tell you what happened, and you choose to feel a certain way about it. De'Aaron Fox coming into the final year of his deal next year. The Kings offered him a max deal. He wanted to pause on that max deal for two reasons. Number one, if he made all NBA this year, it's a lot more money. There's no financial incentive. He's taking a small risk if he got like a catastrophic injury, but for the most part, the smart thing would be to hold out. But the other thing was a message he sent to the team, which was, guys, I want to be here, but we need more. You know, they've gotten DeRozan and Keegan Murray and DeMonte. It's not like they've sat on their hands. But you go from a first-round playoff team back to a play-in team, and then going into the season, it's like, okay, well, we took a step backward last year. I just want to make sure we're not taking more steps backward. This is the only leverage I really have for you to improve the team. So you want me to sign the deal? I want to sign the deal, but I need you to show me something. You had the incident last year that we've talked about before that really pissed him off, where media was asking, where is De'Aaron Fox after a couple of tough losses? And he didn't appreciate that. He felt he and the other players were kind of left out to dry when it's King's PR that decides who goes out and speaks. He never once said, I'm not going to talk to the media, but that was the portrayal. You see that pattern a little bit with the Mike Brown situation as well. He felt a little bit left out to dry. In the end, when you have the combination of Mike Brown, the way that was handled, the fact that the team was not performing this year, the fact that they were still lacking depth, lacking bigs, he did not feel ultimately the trust in the organization that they were going. He did not trust them to create a stable contender. I hope he's wrong. But that was, after 7 years in the league, that was his determination that this franchise was not capable enough or stable enough to give him and his teammates a shot at winning the title over the next 4 or 5 years. So he chose a very specific organization, one that, if you want to talk about stability and capabilities and draft success and championship success, is almost a photo negative of the Sacramento Kings. Also happens to be in his home state. A lot of other things went into it. He chose San Antonio. He made that his preferred destination. He informed them that that was his preferred destination. He wanted to have control over where he went. The Kings had options. The Kings did not have to trade him at the deadline. The Kings could have waited until the summer. The Kings could have kept him the rest of this year and all of next year. And then De'Aaron could have determined wherever he was going to go. He knew that if he only wanted to play, one of two places, Sacramento or San Antonio. And he was either going to sign a deal with Sacramento and play here. He was going to get traded to San Antonio, or he was going to get traded somewhere else, let that contract run out, and then go to San Antonio anyways. He and his camp felt like, in addition to doing what was best for him and what was best for him first and foremost, that the best thing to do for the organization was to inform them of those things, give them ample opportunity to gauge interest and value, and get what they felt was like the max return they could for him, rather than him leaving free agency and them get nothing, or he be an expiring contract and they get less. He loves the fans. He loves the city. It's always going to be home. Those are his words. In the end, it was a business decision. And that's it. That's the conversation. And I expect you're going to hear other conversations throughout the day. Obviously, he felt
compelled to talk to plenty of people.
He reached out. And you might be saying, well, why is he still with the Spurs? He's with the Spurs. Why is he reaching out? Why is he having this conversation? Well, I think that probably speaks to he cares what Sacramento fans think. I'm not here, and Jason, you can do what you want. I'm not here to try to convince people. People know where I stand. People know where I've stood for weeks now. I'm a Sacramento Kings fan first and foremost. I ride for the city first, followed by the players and franchise. And I want what's best for this team and this city. I hope that De'Aaron Fox's departure becomes a lesson and a group of knowledge for us as fans that there are things that need to be tied up behind the scenes. This has happened before. This will happen again. There is a reason why the Kings are known perennially as one of the outposts of the NBA. It's not because it's anti-Sacramento as much as we want to think. It's because the franchise historically has not been run at the level other franchises have been run. Some may choose to say, screw you, I'm booing you, I don't care, you screw it. That is 100% you're right. My only warning would be that if you do that and you write off the reasons he left, you're just asking for more. There is no advantage. There's no advantage to me having this position. I work for the flagship station of the Sacramento Kings. De'Aaron Fox is gone. We need relationships. We rely on them. They rely on us. We are a partner. There is no advantage to this. I didn't put this out yesterday or today for a ratings grab. Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I wanted to get it out there. And ultimately, I'm going to probably have some uncomfortable conversations after the show about this with people I don't want to have uncomfortable conversations with. But I think the truth, I think spotlight, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And if we don't learn from this, we're just doomed to repeat it in the future. And I am personally tired of this cycle of not rebuilding and not winning championships, not getting to the second round and not being terrible, but at being in this middle ground, the no man's land of the NBA, where we're just cycling through.
Yeah.
And as my son, who is 16 years old, is a diehard every game Kings fan, I have infected him with this disease. And as he gets older and as I get older, things change a little bit in the way I think. I will inevitably have grandchildren that are Sacramento Kings fans someday. I want what's best for the organization because that means that's what's best for the fans and for the city. And ultimately, I think we can learn from this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when we do have Monty on. Like we said, we think it'll be Monday, maybe Tuesday, just to see, obviously these are some things we can approach with him, but what they elect to answer. And I know the press conference the other day was uncomfortable. It just
Yes, it was.
And it was still fresher then and raw. And, there's a little bit of time here and maybe there is time to, maybe the suggestion should be just move on. But look, De'Aaron has kind of extended this story. Reaching out.
He has.
It's this team will move on. This is the team they have. De'Aaron is no longer a King, but obviously he felt compelled enough to reach out.
And look, it's definitely a little gossipy. It's definitely, look, here's some things that there's no argument. Fox wants to get a story up.
Yeah.
This is everyone's going to spin their thing.
Yeah, it's Fox's side of it.
It's Fox's side of it.
Right.
I'm ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't want to do is I don't want to glaze over. That's been the consistency. I don't want to glaze over. I want to learn from this. I want to learn from this. I want the franchise to learn from this. I want Monty and Wes in that front office to be graded on their merits, of which I think there's a lot of good, but also this is a results-based business.
Sure.
I also want to make sure that those operating above Monty and Wes are also operating properly. Interference, the things you hear, voices in the room, the stuff we don't know but wish we did, but we hear about. Like, I don't want to be unfair to them, but I also don't want to be overly fair to them. If there's things that need to be corrected, they need to be corrected. We're all in it together. I have no doubt in my mind. I've never had a doubt, not once. There's a picture floating around of Vivek Ranadive last night up in Portland, not looking happy at the Portland game. A guy who comes up for every single home game unless he's sick or traveling. He's not on his phone.
He's not.
He is locked in. I will never, ever say, well, I can't say that. I have never, ever said or felt like Vivek Ranadive isn't as obsessed with as all of us in winning a championship. He is obsessed with this team being good. I will never question that because there's no reason to question it. But I don't know if he knows what he's doing. I don't know if he knows how. He's been incredibly successful in all other facets of business. That brings with it a tremendous confidence. Of course you're going to have confidence. Of course you're going to have an ego. Of course you want to be a leader. But we see it time and time and time again. If, I'm not accusing him of this, I'm saying if he is a voice in the room, If there are voices in the room when it comes to personnel other than money,
Sure.
which is his right.
Right.
If there are voices in the room that are not trained front office staffs, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You are not a basketball expert. You are a basketball fan that owns a team. I would say that same thing to anybody else at the organization, not named Monty or Wes or anyone that works underneath them. It is a different level. And when you go to the most successful teams in the NBA, hell, the most successful teams in sports, just American sports, time and time again. Who's the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs? When was the last time you heard they were involved? Who's the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles? Jeffrey Lurie. When was the last time you heard anything about him being involved in personnel decisions? San Antonio, Oklahoma City. Hell, say what you want about what's his name, Clay Bennett. He's probably a snake. He certainly was a snake with the Seattle thing. Pretty damn good owner. You don't ever hear anything about him. So I want this isn't about accusing and blame and all that. This is about we are all in the same boat. We are all rowing in the same direction. We all want the same thing. We all need to learn from our mistakes and admit them, or we are doomed to repeat them. That's it. We'll take a break. When we come back, let's get back to the deadline, the moves, everything that's going on.